Morning everyone. ఎలా ఉంది అక్కడ సిచ్యువేషన్? మూడు నాలుగు నెలల నుంచి ఇంట్లో ఫ్రీగా ఖాళీగా కూర్చొని బోర్ పడతా ఉంటది. జస్ట్ యూ వాంట్ కమ్ టు కాలేజ్, రైట్? బట్ ఐ థింక్ వీ హ్యావ్ టు వెయిట్ one more month or one more year. Okay, so in your previous classes in general toxicology, you know how their poisons were classified, right? And actually, you know, general symptoms of toxicology and also the management of all the general management of all the cases of poisons, right? So actually, if you know those fundamentals in general toxicology, okay, you can actually answer any question in toxicology. Okay, so actually, if you know fundamentals of treatment of a case of poisoning, fundamentals of a role of a doctor in case of treating a poison, classification of poison, so all those things, if you know the class of the poison, actually from that you can derive the signs and symptoms and write. Okay, so okay, before these different classes of poisons, you should be thorough with the classification and the general management of the cases of poisons. Okay, so actually you might have received the topics for your examination, right? The second internal examination. So it doesn't include corrosives, but weekly tests will be conducted on the topics that were covered in that week. Okay, so coming to these corrosive poisons, so as the name suggests, they will corrode something to which they will come in contact with. Okay, so actually in the classification of poisons, so how they are classified, so based on their effect, right? So for example, whether they are acting locally or systemically, so the corrosive poisons will come under the local poisons that act locally. And even though they are classified under corrosive poisons and which actually has local action, there are few corrosive poisons which also have systemic actions. Okay, apart from the local action, they also have systemic actions. Okay, so coming to the corrosives, the corrosive substance, what is corrosion means? It fixes, destroys or erodes the surface with which it comes in contact with. Okay, so corrosive poison results from ingestion, topical exposure or inhalation. That is, it can actually directly cause the damage by direct contact on the skin, or due to inhalation of the fumes of that particular poison or the chemical, or it also can actually cause the systemic effects. Okay, systemic effects due to ingestion of that particular poison. Okay, so due to ingestion, actually they cause the local action, that is on the alimentary tract, and also in few cases they actually, in case of actually the organic acids, the acid actually will act on the different systems. Okay, that we are going to see, right? So actually, apart from this corrosive poisons acting locally, so what happens because of the local action? For example, these corrosive poisons will cause extraction of the water from the tissues. So what happens because of that? There will be hypovolemia, right? So that leads to systemic reaction. So what happens? So even though the action is local, there are systemic effects of these corrosive poisons, right? And they will destroy the tissue at the point of contact. Okay, so that is why they are classified under the local acting poisons. Coming to the classification of the corrosive poisons, so they can be classified into strong, you can say, acids and strong alkalis, weak acids and weak alkalis, right? So coming to the acids, so first we are going to discuss about the acids. So there are three main types, that is strong acids, otherwise known as mineral acids, because of this some mineral that is present in those acids, that is sulfur in case of sulfuric acid, nitrous. Okay, so they are classified under the mineral acids, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, hydrochloric acid. So they are actually the strong acids. Okay, organic acids, actually they are called as weak acids because of their weak corrosive action, and they are oxalic acid, carbolic acid, acetic acid, salicylic acid. So there are so many other weak acids But we are going to discuss about the oxalic acid and the carbolic acid, which are very, very important poisons that are commonly come across. Okay, right. And next is vegetable acid. Actually, this is a systemic acid, that is hydrocyanic acid. We are not actually, okay, even though I am discussing here in corrosive poisons, it is actually not a corrosive poison. Okay, it's a just for, because it is acid, actually I am discussing here, but it is not a corrosive poison. Right. So now common agents, that is, so you might have learned about these household poisons, right? So in general toxicology, so how these poisons, how we are going to expose to these poisons, because they are available maybe in the house, maybe in the workplace, right? So here in case of acids, so they are actually most commonly, these acids are industrial in use, so they will be most commonly used in industries. So, for example, hydrosulfuric acid is used as a battery fluid in the cars, in all the vehicles, right? And hydrochloric acid as a descaler, and nitric acid as metal cleaner, rust remover for hydrochloric acid, disinfectant for phenol. So, normal Dettol, all these actually contain the phenol. Okay. Coming to the fatal period and fatal dose of these acids. You know what is fatal period and fatal dose, right? So I'm not going to be going into details. Okay, so you should remember few important fatal doses and periods. And here in case of sulfuric acid, it is, and nitric acid is 15 to 20 ml. So because it is in liquid form, okay. So it is 20 ml, 15 to 20 ml, and fatal dose is same for both sulfuric acid and nitric acid. But the fatal period is okay. That is, it is fatal in, for more rapidly fatal in case of sulfuric acid, and hydrochloric acid Cl is fatal period dose is 20 to 30 ml, and fatal period 24 hours or a day. Right, and coming to the weak acids or organic acids, carbolic acid 10 to 15 grams. So by grams, actually it occurs in crystalline form. Okay, so that is why it is in grams, 10 to 15 grams carbolic acid, oxalic acid 15 to 20 grams, hydrocyanic acid 60 milligram. Okay, so cyanide, so it's very small quantities of cyanide is ml. Okay, coming to the mechanism of action of these acids. So they actually corrode. So any actually corrosive substance will act by destroying the tissues that they come in contact with. So whether it is an acid or an alkali. So same thing happens with acid also, and they actually extract the water from the tissues, and they cause coagulation of the cellular proteins, and convert hemoglobin into hematin. So that is what is, okay, when if you remember in physiology, you might have learned Sahalis reaction, Sahalis test for hemoglobin, testing hemoglobin. What we are using there? Hydrochloric acid, right? So similarly, all the acids actually will convert the hemoglobin into hematin. Okay. Next, the tissue protein is converted into acid proteinate, which dissolves in the concentrated acid. So that is present in that at that site of the exposure. And they precipitate the protein and form the coagulative necrosis. This is very important to remember. The acids will actually form the coagulative necrosis. Okay, they act by coagulative necrosis. So what happens? This coagulum, that is a hard structure, will be formed after the destruction of the initial surface that has come in contact with the acid, and that actually will act as a barrier and limits the further damage of the tissues underlying that particular coagulum. Okay, so that is the okay, that is how these acids will act, right? And the squamous epithelium of the pharynx and the esophagus are resistant to acids. Okay, because of their structure, because of the structure lined by this squamous epithelium, which is resistant to acids. So the most commonly they will not be affected when compared to the alkalis. They are less affected in case of acid poison. Okay, stomach is the most commonly affected organ in the body due to ingestion. Okay, while ingestion, stomach is the most common organ affected, and most common complication is perforation of the stomach. Okay, so actually it occurs in 3 to 4 days. It can happen between 1 week to 3 weeks. Okay, that is the where actually the scarring of the during the healing process, the scarring is formed, right? Scar is formed. So that happens after 1 week, right? So that scar is the weakest part of the stomach, and that actually yields and gives the perforation. So if you remember the healing process that you might have learned in pathology, okay, in case during inflammation. So same process happens even in the acid poisoning. So there is inflammation, there is a healing. Okay, what happens is because of the destruction of the tissues, there will be granulation tissue is formed. That granulation tissue converts into scar. That scar finally will form a cicatrice. That is thick scar will be formed after 3 weeks after the damage that occurred at the site of contact of these corrosive acids. In presence of food, actually food is a barrier, right? So it actually can protect the stomach wall from getting damaged. In that case, there will be, the exposed parts of the stomach will be the lesser curvature and the pylorus. So these are the damaged parts in case of presence of food. If there is food is present inside the stomach and somebody drinks it, then it will actually, the damage is less and it may be confined to the lesser curvature and the pylorus of the stomach. Okay, coming to the local action that is on the skin. So when somebody get exposed to the acid, maybe an accidental spillage of the acid on the skin. So there is what happens, there will be chemical burns. So you should remember that these burns are different from those burns which are formed due to the fire, that is thermal burns. Okay, they are entirely different, and I will tell you what is the difference in the next upcoming slides. So you should remember these are the chemical burns. Okay, they are different from the thermal burns that are caused due to the flame. Okay, that are caused due to the flame. So in case of burns due to these, not only these corrosive acids but also in alkalis. So what happens? There may be first degree burns or second degree burns or third degree burns. First degree burns is there will be only involvement of the superficial layer, that is the epidermis. So there will be edema and erythema of the superficial layer, that is epidermis, and with hot, painful, red and swollen skin will be present. In case of second degree burns, which is more common, characterized by severe damage and edema. So in this case, what happens in case of chemical burns of second degree nature, the pain is less when compared to the burns due to the fire. Okay, third degree burns are deep in nature and they will be destructing the skin, and they actually will cause the deep ulceration. So they will cause the ulceration and they will heal by scar formation, which actually finally goes into a stage of cicatrization where the thick scar is formed and leads to contractures of the skin. So you might have seen somebody is having their neck closed to like this in case of burns. That is due to the contractures, excessive scar formation, contracture, and for causing those excessive scars, hypertrophic scars on the skin. And coming to the clinical features in case of general corrosive poisons, corrosive acids, there will be dyspnea, dysphonia, and dysphagia. So what is dyspnea? Difficulty in breathing, difficulty in speaking, difficulty in eating, right? And abdominal pain will be present, nausea and vomiting, hematemesis, and melena also will be present in case of the acids, right? So you know what is melena, right? So altered blood will be present in the stools. So corrosion of the mouth and lips will be present. If somebody ingests, there will be corrosion of the lips and mouth will be present. There will be swollen tongue will be present. Okay, there will be intense thirst. Okay, because of the dehydration that is caused by these acids or any corrosive substance. What happens? There will be increased thirst, severe burning pain in the mouth, abdomen, pharynx, followed by vomiting and melena. Constipation will be present. Okay, and there will be painful defecation will be present. And scanty urine, that is due to the shock that is produced by the dehydration of the tissues. Okay, that can actually lead to scanty urine or decreased urine, or dysuria may also be present. And coming to the signs of acid poisoning, stridor, drooling of the saliva will be present, and hoarseness of voice. Why the drooling? Actually, somebody may not be able to swallow their saliva, so that actually can lead to drooling of the saliva. And hoarseness of voice is actually due to the swelling in the pharynx and larynx due to the fumes of the acid. right? And stiffness and tenderness over the abdomen may be present. And coming to the systemic symptoms, so I told you this is a local acting poison, but there are systemic symptoms. How? Because of the dehydration that it produces, right? So there will be anxiety, hesitation present, leading to this anxiety itself actually can lead to tachycardia, and also actually the shock that is produced. That is, there are you know what are different types of shocks? What are different types of shocks? Hypovolemic shock. So the most common type of shock that occurs in case of poisoning due to acids is the hypovolemic shock. Actually, it can also lead to septic shock. It can also lead to, okay, cardiogenic shock is rare, but neurogenic shock. Neurogenic shock can also occur in cases of where a person is exposed to these acids. How? Because of the intense pain that actually can cause due to these burns. What happens? The person actually can go into neurogenic shock and die, okay, immediately after the exposure to local exposure to these poison, that is acids, right? Or not only acids but also alcohols. So what happens? There will be anxious face, shrunken eyes, dilated pupils, rapid feeble pulse, so which is one of the important signs of hypovolemic shock, right? And there are also silent respirations may be present. And if death occurs, so primarily due to shock, that is neurogenic shock, it can actually lead to death, or hypovolemic shock also can cause the death of the person, right? And if it is not treated, the person actually will go into hypovolemic shock and die. And edema of the glottis because of the swelling in the glottis, which leads to difficulty in breathing, no entry of air, and that actually can lead to death. So in that case, what you have to do? Just to do a tracheostomy that can actually save the life of the person, right? And perforation of the stomach also can actually happen after 3 days, and which can lead to hypovolemic shock, okay, bleeding and shock, and in that particular case, right? And when death is delayed, so somebody has survived the initial phase of 1 or 2 weeks, so that can actually lead to hypostatic pneumonia, or even in few cases there will be septic shock and the person may die. Okay, in very delayed cases, what happens? Malnutrition, because the stomach is already spoiled, right? So they actually cannot take food, so that can actually lead to starvation and death. So that actually can, okay, in that case the death will be delayed. Okay, right? And next is specific signs and symptoms in case of acid poisoning. So first one is sulfuric acid, one of the most common acids that is, the person may get exposed to. So it is most commonly used in chemical industries. It is pure sulfuric acid is colorless, oily, heavy, non-fuming, odorless, hygroscopic fluid. So it actually doesn't mix with water. But what we see is a brown colored sulfuric acid, okay, due to exposure of because of the impurities, right? Coming to the signs in case of ingestion of sulfuric acid, so erosion over the angles of the mouth. So that is common not only in sulfuric acid, in all the poisons, but the differentiating feature which identifies the specific poison in case of sulfuric acid is blackish or brownish discoloration that of the parts that have come in contact with the acid. So in this case, it can be skin, it can be mouth, it can be so anywhere it comes in contact with, it actually turns into brown or blackish discoloration, right? And teeth will be chalky white, and perforation is very, very common in case of acid poisoning with sulfuric acid. So of all this, all the other symptoms of poisoning by acid will be common, common to all the types of all these poisons, sulfuric, nitric, or hydrochloric. But the specific signs, is if you see this blackish or brownish discoloration of the areas of exposure, you can actually suspect sulfuric acid. Okay, and coming to the inhalation, so same with all the poisons, there will be cough, choking, dyspnea. Okay, so all those symptoms will be present. Dysphonia will be present. Okay, headache, dizziness may be present, and pulmonary edema in cases where somebody inhales lots of fumes. There may be pulmonary edema leading to the breathing difficulties. Okay, so all those symptoms may be present because of the pulmonary edema. Right, coming to the nitric acid, so Okay, we have seen that blackish or brownish discoloration is present in sulfuric acid. Here in case of nitric acid, same, all the other signs are present, but the color discoloration is yellow in color. So why? Because it actually coagulates the proteins into xanthoprotein. Okay, so what happens? Xanthoprotein is yellow in color, so that is why this poisoning or contact with the nitric acid will turn the skin, mouth, okay, or mucous membrane into yellow color, right? Perforation is actually not common, but can occur. Okay, it doesn't mean that it doesn't occur, right? So when compared to the sulfuric acid, it is not that much common, right? And here in case of sulfuric acid, it is also a colorless, odorless, volatile substance, and actually it can turn into yellow when exposed to air. And corrosion is actually less severe when compared to these other acids. Okay, because you know, normally we produce hydrochloric acid, isn't it? Stomach will produce hydrochloric acid to digest food. So that is the reason why hydrochloric acid doesn't produce that much severe symptoms when compared to the other acids like sulfuric acid or nitric acid, right? And perforation is also very less when compared to the nitric acid. So next another, this is a very important short notes question, that is vitriolage. So what is vitriolage? It is nothing but throwing of any corrosive substance with malicious interest, like destroying vision or facial disfigurement. So most commonly the why they will throw these corrosive substance on a person, most commonly due to the jealousy, right? So facial, the most common complication is facial disfigurement. So most commonly where they will throwing it on the face, okay, throwing it on the face leading to the facial disfigurement. And why this vitriolage? You know, now the common name for sulfuric acid is oil of vitriol, right? Because sulfuric acid is most commonly used substance in vitriolage, the name came from there. Okay, it doesn't mean that it is caused only, okay, we'll call vitriolage only when sulfuric acid is used. Okay, any corrosive substance is used, still we'll call it as vitriolage, but the name is actually derived from the oil of vitriol, that is sulfuric acid. Okay, so as I told you, any corrosive substance, so all the poisons which are classified under corrosive substance, and also few poisons classified under irritant poisons also can actually cause the corrosion, and in higher concentration they will also produce corrosion, and they are also included in the chemicals that are causing vitriolage. Okay, so coming to the vitriolage, so same thing happened, right? So this leads to chemical burns. I told you, right? So how to differentiate a chemical burn from a normal burn, that is the flame burns. So as you can see there is discoloration, which is actually not seen in case of chemical flame burns, and the staining of the skin. So as you have learned already, sulfuric acid will produce different staining. Okay, nitric acid will produce different staining, right? So that is actually useful in differentiating the chemical burns from the burns caused by the flame, right? And trickle marks. So why trickle marks? Because okay, somebody ingests, what happens? So it comes down. Okay, something fell on the angle of the mouth, it comes down, right? So those trickle marks can be seen. Or if somebody throws the acid, vitriolage, what happens? The trickle marks will actually come down. Okay, that you can actually see in case of chemical burns. And absence of vesiccation when compared to the chemical these flame burns, that is absent. And the line of redness, that is one of the important signs of antemortem burns, is not present in case of the chemical burns. Okay, and cicatrization actually can be seen in both the chemical burns and also the flame burns, but is more common in case of the chemical burns, right? And treatment for vitriolage, washing the corrosive substance. So just neutralize the acid that is thrown on the body just with water and with large amounts of soap, because they contains there's what we call soap contains these alkalis. Okay, so that's what it will neutralize the acid. So you might have studied in your 5th class or 4th class, acids will neutralize alkalis, right? So because it is a strong acid, so we are going to neutralize with a weak alkali. You should not use strong alkalis. You should use weak alkalis like, okay, magnesium oxide can be applied, paste can be applied on the areas of the burns, chemical burns caused by these acids or corrosive substances, right? And eyes are washed with water. So actually, okay, there may be severe pain in the eyes. So you may anesthetize the eye with some pirocarpine or something. And then you actually can wash the eyes if some eyes are exposed. And if the involvement of the cornea is there, so there is a chance that the blindness can happen to that particular person. But still you have to wash it with water and 1% sodium bicarbonate, which is also an alkali, right? And antibiotic drops will be can be installed, and you can use steroids to reduce the inflammation in the eyes. So steroid drops can be used, antibiotic ointment or drops can be used. Right, coming to the treatment of other poisons, that is when skin contact, same treatment like vitriolage, and ingested poisons. Okay, when somebody ingests these acid poisons, so actually you should not use gastric lavage. That is the only absolute contraindication for gastric lavage is corrosive poisoning. Right, so there are other relative contraindications are also there, but only absolute contraindication, only one is there, that is the corrosive poison. Right, and ingested acid may be diluted by drinking large quantities of water and milk, and food actually, it can actually act as a barrier to the mucosa. So as you know, milk is a demulcent, right? So the milk, egg, albumin, these are all demulcents which actually form a protective layer to the skin, the mucosa, and stop the action of these local poisons, right? And treat shock by administration of 5% dextrose. So depending upon the electrolyte balances, all those things taken into consideration, you can use Ringer lactate solution, you can use 5% saline. So normally, right, saline can be used, sorry, 0.9% saline or dextrose. So any of these IV fluids can be used if there is a very severe shock. What you can do, hemaxin can be used, blood transfusion. So you just plan the treatment according to the situation, that is symptoms of that particular person. Morphine for pain can be given, right? And you have to maintain adequate airway. As I told you, if there is swelling in the larynx, where actually the person is suffering from breathing difficulty, you can do a tracheostomy to actually open the airways, right? And inhalation poisons, like if in cases where there is pulmonary edema, you can give artificial respiration by using a ventilator, right? So treat bacterial pneumonia if there is pneumonia. So depending upon the symptomatology in that particular case, you actually follow according that. And the specific treatment, as I told you, there is no gastric chance for gastric lavage in case of corrosive acid poisoning, and demulcents can be used, or weak alkalis, that is magnesium oxide solution, can in plenty of water can be used. You should never use strong alkalis to neutralize strong acids, because that actually will produce a lot of carbon dioxide that will actually cause the perforation of the stomach. So you should never use strong alkalis in case of strong acid poisoning to neutralize the poison. Okay, coming to the postmortem appearance in strong acid poisoning. So signs of corrosion will be present, partial destruction of the tissues where it has come in contact with, charring of the teeth, chalky white in case of sulfuric acid, yellow in case of the xanthoprotic reaction in nitric acid. Lips may be burnt and streaks may be found on the skin, the chin, neck, chest, hands. Okay, so depending upon the dribbling of those acid or the acid on the skin, and the stomach may actually show localized patches of extensive corrosion, and there may be scarrings. Okay, and actually may also lead to perforation, and it is only common with the sulfuric acid poisoning, and respiratory symptoms are more common with hydrochloric and nitric acid poisoning. And coming to the medical legal aspects, so what is the importance of this corrosive acid poisoning? So suicides are actually rare, but still, okay, rare doesn't mean doesn't happen, right? So they're not that much common, and it also can be used as a homicidal poison. Okay, but you cannot mix it with food. Yes, somebody can throw it. That is, vitriolage can be done. And if you remember the medical legal aspects of injuries, so there are two sections under the medical legal aspects of injuries, 326A and 326B. So that is, one is causing grievous hurt using these corrosive substance. So that is destruction of the face comes under the 320 IPC, right? So that is grievous hurt. So in that case, the person can be imprisoned for up to 10 years. And in cases where there is no grievous injury, but somebody throws with a malintention acid on the person, which actually doesn't cause grievous hurt, can be punished up to 5 to 7 years of imprisonment and according to section 326 BIPC. So they cause severe injury or even death from the accidental spillage. So depending upon the severity of the burns that the person experiences. Okay. Next is the weak acids or organic acids. So actually, when compared to these strong acids, these weak acids will not have that much corrosive action. Okay. And in diluted states, what happens? These weak acids actually can cause direct systemic effects, not indirect systemic effects like in case of sulfuric acid or something. Here, in case of oxalic acid and carbolic acid, they actually cause direct systemic action. So that is why they have both the local and systemic actions. Okay, both carbolic and oxalic acids. Right? So oxalic acids normally in crystalline form. Okay, and actually they will be not naturally available in green leafy vegetables like spinach, rhubarb, or parsley. So actually they directly may not cause poisoning, but somebody may experience these oxalate crystals in their kidney stones, may contain oxalates because of excessive use of the spinach. If somebody is actually prone to developing renal stones. So that is why doctors will tell you to tell the patients who have renal stones to stop eating spinach, right? So because of these oxalates that are present in the leaves of the spinach. Okay, it is used as in many chemical processes like bleaching and dyeing. It may be used to remove signatures. Okay, that is one of the medical importance. So for forgeries, from the signature from the documents will be removed by using these oxalate crystals. And actually, fulminant poison can occur in 15 to 20 grams of oxalate crystals is consumed. Then the person actually will die even before the development of the systemic symptoms. And fatal period may be within an hour. If somebody is exposed to large doses of oxalates. It causes immediate death from shock. That is due to the necrotic effect of the poison on direct action of the poison on the body. So that is called as fulminant poison. You know what is the difference between fulminant poisoning, acute, subacute, and chronic poisons, right? So I'm not going to deal about it. That's why I told you should thoroughly read general toxicology so that you actually can understand and also easily remember all the other systemic poisons. Right. Next, coming to the acute poisoning. So the acute poison will produce both local and remote actions. So local actions. So in case of concentrated forms where come in contact with this mucous membrane, they actually cause the corrosion of the mucous membrane. Okay. So the corrosion the color of the corrosion, the staining will be brownish in color like the sulfuric acid. And the remote actions include shock, hypocalcemia, and renal damage. Okay. So the shock actually is due to the, like in the corrosive acid poisoning, the strong acid poisoning, shock may be due to that. And hypocalcemia and renal damage are actually due to the direct action of this poison after entering into the systemic circulation. So we'll see that. So sour taste may be present and burning sensation in the throat and stomach will be present like in the corrosive poison. And there may be persistent vomiting, which is in black in color, otherwise known as coffee ground appearance of the vomitus. So that is actually due to the altered blood. So that is digested blood, right? Partly digested blood actually will give that brownish or blackish coloration to the vomitus. Right? And purging and tenesmus may be present, and signs of shock and collapse also will be seen in case of acute poisoning by oxalates. Right? And combines with serum calcium. So the systemic actions of these oxalates are due to the combination of these oxalates with calcium. So what happens? There will be reduced calcium in the circulation. So that leads to hypocalcemia. So there are two things that is happening because of the combination of these oxalates with calcium. First thing is there is development of hypocalcemia, and the second thing is there is development of the calcium oxalate crystals in the circulation. So these are the two things that are happening because of this chemical reaction of these oxalates with calcium. So that what is hypocalcemia is doing, it leads to numbness, tingling. So you know the signs and symptoms of hypocalcemia, right? Twitchings of the muscles and extremities, and even convulsions can also happen due to the hypocalcemia. And direct nephrotic action due to the oxalate crystals, that is leading to the oliguria, albumin, and blood and calcium oxalate crystals in the urine. Okay, you can see these blood in the urine, mucus in the urine, albumin in the urine can be present along with the oxalate crystals in the urine. Okay, that is known as oxaluria. So that is what is oxaluria. It can be asked as a 2 marks question. Just oxaluria. In few cases, they may actually ask, oxalic acid poison, signs and symptoms of oxalate poisoning as a short 4 marks question. Okay, coming to this treatment, a soft stomach tube may be passed and washed with lime water. Okay, so that is nothing but magnesium oxide, and calcium preparation converts the poison into soluble calcium oxalate. So what happening? So there is the hypocalcemia. So you have to replace calcium, right? So for that you actually can give any calcium preparation to actually to make the person normocalcemic, right? And so what we are going to give, chalk 30 grams in water or milk neutralize these oxalates, and also you can use calcium gluconate to increase the amount of calcium that is present and reduce the symptoms of hypocalcemia. And control fluid intake, actually, even though you are making these, you are using calcium to make calcium oxalates, what happens? Those oxalate crystals actually can form the stones, and they actually cause renal failure, right? So that's why you should give the fluid intake in such a way that these crystals will not actually struck and form the stones in the kidneys, right? And postmortem appearances, mucosa will be white or bleached in appearance, and sometimes reddened due to irritation. And stomach actually shows large brown gelatinous liquid due to the formation of acid hematine. That is what actually you can see, blackish vomitus. So that material can be left in the stomach, which you can see during your postmortem examination. And mucosa is corroded and detached, and congestion of the lungs. So actually in all the cases of poisoning, actually you can see this congestion of all the viscera. Okay, so in all the cases of poisoning, most of the cases of the poisoning, you actually can see the congestion of the lungs, liver, kidneys, and brain. So that is not a specific sign, but you can also see that in sign in case of the oxalate poisoning. And medical legal aspects may be mistaken for magnesium oxide, magnesium sulfate, or sodium bicarbonate, and can be consumed, and that actually can lead to poisoning. And present in the leaves of the rhubarb, actually when used in large quantities, actually can lead to poison, but which is rare. Okay, usually with suicidal intention, somebody can actually eat them, and actually nobody can use it as a homicidal poison because of that taste actually that the person can experience when you mix with the food. Okay, next is the carbolic acid. So this is also very, very important short notes. Carbolic acid poison, right? And it's a the common name is phenol. Okay, it's a colorless prismatic needle crystal. So the purest form of carbolic acid is actually a crystalline form. Okay, it's a crystalline form having sweetish or burning taste, and the specific smell that is called as phenolic smell will be present in case of carbolic acid poison. And slightly soluble in water and readily soluble in alcohol. Okay, so this is actually the chemical structure is actually alcohol, so it actually can mix with the alcohol readily, but it also mixes with water, but not that much when compared to the alcohol. Becomes pink liquid when exposed to air, so that's actually that can actually alter the color of the carbolic acid or phenol. Commercial liquid, which is actually brown, as you can see in this photograph, is actually due to the cresol that is present in the phenol. Okay, so that is actually giving this brownish coloration to the carbolic acid. So disinfecting agents like Dettol, Lysol also contain the carbolic acid, and when exposed, they are actually cause corrosion to the eyes. So burning and pain in the eyes, blurred vision may be present and may actually cause the severe damage and also blindness when somebody's eyes get exposed to this carbolic acid. And the signs and symptoms of poisoning, systemic signs and symptoms of poisoning due to carbolic acid is actually called as carbolism. So actually it has both local and systemic actions, right? So actually when both the things can be called as carbolism when somebody has these symptoms. So what are the local actions? So like any other corrosive poisoning, they actually produce corrosion and all those things, right? So apart from that, it actually will produce tingling sensation and anesthesia. Okay, pins and needle sensation and anesthesia. So actually, even in case of oxalate poisoning, there is tingling sensation. That is actually due to the hypocalcemia, right? Here actually this is due to the damage of the nerve endings. In case of carbolic acid poisoning, there will be tingling and anesthesia. Most commonly when somebody consumes, most commonly it will be around the mouth. In case of that oxalate poisoning, the tingling and numbness may be present in throughout the body. Okay, it can be present in the arms and all those things. Here, most commonly, carbolism, tingling and numbness around the mouth is an important sign of a carbolic acid poison. And a white opaque ester is produced that falls off in few days, leaving a brown stain. And when somebody ingests, what happens? There will be hard burning pain, tingling and anesthesia around the mouth. Swallowing and speech will become painful. Lips, mouth, and tongue are corroded. So all those are common signs of any corrosive poison, right? And that corroded part actually appears white and bleached and hardened. Later, it turns brown and sloughs rapidly. So actually, in case of somebody ingested this carbolic acid, so what happens? So there will be these whitish patches will be present and actually which actually turns into brown in color, right? So and okay, coming to the remote actions of these carbolic acid poisoning. So what happens? It actually can get absorbed through mucosa of the stomach, so mucosa of the mouth, stomach, and vagina, and all serous cavities, and even through intact skin. So even the intact skin actually can absorb some amount of carbolic acid. And feel skin is covered and clammy in case of a person is experiencing shock, and weak pulse and weak and feeble pulse will be present. Pupils are pinpoint or contracted, and temperature is subnormal, breathing stertorous and labored. Breath will give the smell of carbolic acid or phenol smell, and renal failure actually due to the direct toxicity as well as the hypotension caused by the corrosive poison, right? And nephrotic action leading to the anuria and oliguria, and urine contains albumin, blood gas, so similar to that of the oxalate poisoning. And here the specific feature is the presence of hydroquinone or pyracatechol, hydroquinone and pyracatechol. So these are the metabolic products of carbolic acid, hydroquinone and pyracatechol. These are the metabolic products of carbolic acid that are produced due to metabolism of the carbolic acid in the body, that will be eliminated in the urine. So when this urine which contains this pyracatechol and hydroquinone gets exposed to air, it actually turns into green color. So that is called as carboluria. So that is presence of carbolic acid metabolites, that is hydroquinone and pyracatechol in the urine giving the greenish coloration is called as the carboluria, right? And coma follows and death is due to the paralysis of respiratory center or cardiac center. And fatal dose is actually 20 drops of pure phenol actually can kill. 40 drops of carbolic disinfectants can also cause death in few cases. Okay, about 50% of the cases. And fatal period is 3 to 4 hours, 3 minutes to 60 hours in case of the in case of their components. Okay, if somebody is not taken pure phenol, carbolic acid or phenol, then the death may be delayed, right? And coming to the treatment, so same with any other acid poisoning. Okay, clean with water, soap. Okay, and a soft stomach tube can be passed. So I told you in in the absolute contraindications of gastric lavage, corrosive poison, right? Even though it is classified under corrosive poisoning, You can use gastric lavage tube or a soft stomach tube in case of actually both oxalic acid and carbolic acid. But okay, even you may actually hesitate to do gastric lavage in oxalate poisoning, but you can definitely do gastric lavage in case of carbolic acid or phenol poisoning, because actually the stomach will actually get hardened by the phenolic acid or carbolic acid. Okay, stomach mucosa will be hardened. So the chances of perforation are less in case of carbolic acid or phenol. That is why gastric lavage is not contraindicated in case of carbolic acid poisoning. Okay, demulcents can be used, IV saline, bicarbonate to actually alkalize the urine. So all those are common. Okay, specific, not okay. General treatment guidelines for the carbolic acid poisoning. And postmortem appearances, grayish white stains will be present on the angles of the mouth and also the chin, tongue white and swollen, and this stomach. So this is the very important feature. So thickened brownish leathery projections. Okay, so the stomach wall will actually look like skin. Okay, so that much thick it becomes, right? So that is why gastric lavage is not contraindicated in case of carbolic acid or phenol poisoning, and contains dark brown mucoid liquid with the phenolic smell. If some phenol may be present, if there is nobody has done gastric lavage. And liver and spleen actually may show whitish hardened patches. Okay, due to the translation of the phenol. Okay, that actually can be seen in case of the liver and spleen. And coming to the chronic poisoning, that is okay, somebody who is a sanitation worker who is using the phenol, they actually get exposed to this vapors of this phenol, right? So they actually can produce signs of chronic poisoning, that is known as phenol marasmus. So what is marasmus? It is a type of malnutrition, right? So in this case also, there will be malnutrition in those people who are actually chronically exposed to this phenol, right? There will be anorexia, weight loss, and also dark colored urine. That is, okay, we have discussed already. This pyroketicol and hydroquinone actually give that dark coloration to the people who are chronically exposed to the phenol, right? And this also actually will cause the pigmentation on the cornea and various cartilages, that is known as ochronosis. Okay, so that is, you know what is carboluria? This is ochronosis, that is nothing but the same, the metabolites of carbolic acid getting deposited in the cartilage and also in the cornea of the person who is chronically exposed to phenol. Medical legal aspects can be used as a suicide, because it is easily available, right, in the house. Somebody can attempt suicide by using phenol, and it also can be used because, as I told, it can actually get absorbed through vagina also. So it can be used to procure abortion. So next one is the alkalis. So actually, the exposure to alkalis is common because of the actually household availability of these poisons, as you can see. So drain cleaner, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, household cleaner and ammonia, okay, bleach in case of disinfectant, right? So all these things are actually, okay, bleach is nothing but hypochlorite, okay, and carbonates of calcium, sodium, and ammonium. So these are the commonest source of chemical burns, right? And they are more dangerous when compared to the acids. Why? You can see here. So actually they saponify fats and also dissolve the proteins. So what happens actually in case of acid poisoning? We can see that there is coagulative necrosis, actually, that is limiting the destruction, right? Here in case of alkalis, there is liquefactive necrosis. What is happening? So there is liquefaction and further damage of the underlying tissues and further liquefaction underlying. So the depth of these injuries or chemical burns is more when compared to the acids in case of the alkali poisoning. So that leads to excessive cicatrization in case of the alkali poisoning. And squamous epithelium of the esophagus and the pharynx are more susceptible to alkalis. So in case of acids, they are more resistant. Here, they are more commonly involved in case of alkali poisoning. Right? Esophageal stricture is a main long-term complication of alkali exposure. Most commonly it occurs in between 2 to 4 weeks. And development of the stricture depends upon the depth of the burns. Okay, superficial burns, there is only 1% chance of development of the stricture of the esophagus, and in case of the deep burns, there is 70 to 100% chance of development of the esophageal stricture, right? So what happens if somebody has esophageal stricture? There will be difficulty in eating. They actually cannot eat solid foods, only liquid foods they can take. So that actually can lead to malnutrition, and actually that may be the complications of lead to complications and death of the person. Right? Mechanism of injury: corrosive alkalis will combine with protein and proteinate, same. Okay, like any corrosive poison, they actually will react with proteins and also with fats. Okay, a soft necrotic tissue will be formed, liquid necrosis, liquefactive necrosis, and actually that will actually cause the underlying damage of the tissues. Solubility of these products allow the further penetration, and finally, in several days of destruction leading to severe scar formation, and okay, that can lead to stricture formation, right? And pathological findings include gelatinous necrotic areas at the site of contact. Okay, and intense stimulation by alkalis can actually cause the loss of reflex loss, and vascular tone and cardiac inhibition can also occur. So local action, so similar to these acids, what happens? Because of the liquefactive necrosis, there will be soapy and necrotic areas with the, okay, without charring of the tissues will be present. Okay, in case of the local action of these corrosive alkalis. And coming to the inhalation, so eyes will cause the irritation of the eyes and causing watering of the eyes, watering from the eyes, and cough and breathlessness will be present similar to the acids, and respiratory tract show edema and inflammation, and laryngeal edema or spasm may also occur in case of similar to that of acids, right? And coming to the systemic features, so lips, mucous membrane and oral cavity, okay, tongue appears soft, swollen, bleached and boggy. So boggy is nothing but a swollen appearance of that particular part which is exposed, and purging will be frequent. That is, so in case of acid poisoning, there will be melena, right? So here, and the diarrhea is very not that much common in case of acid poisoning, but here purging is frequent or common in case of alkali poisoning. Tenesmus, frequency of stools with blood and mucus will be present, and edema of the glottis leading to dyspnea. Fatal doses, okay, 5 grams of sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide. So that is the most potent of the all the alkalis. And here ammonia, actually it can, vapors of ammonia can actually lead to a pulmonary edema and actually death of the person. So somebody drinks the liquefied ammonia, 5 to 10 ml of liquefied ammonia can be fatal. Fatal period is around 24 hours. And treatment, so demulcents, oxygen inhalation in case of ammonia vapors, antibiotics and other supportive treatment. So vinegar, actually it is a weak acid, right? So I told you, you should never use strong acids for strong alkalis and vice versa. Okay, in the treatment of acid poisoning, even though they neutralize, what happens? There is excessive amount of production of gas that actually will cause the bursting of the abdomen, right? So that is why you should never use strong acids for alkali, strong alkali poisoning. So what you can use is a weak acid like vinegar can be used. Vinegar is nothing but acetic acid, you know. Okay, so it can be used. And morphine for pain, ice to relieve thirst, corticosteroids for strictures, tracheostomy in case of very severe glottitis, or okay. So pharyngeal edema is there. You can use tracheostomy. Right? And autopsy findings, ammonia like order in case of ammonia poisoning, and mucus of mouth, tongue, esophagus, stomach will be bleached, and sodden with areas of necrosis, liquefactive necrosis, and the esophagus may show the esophagitis or perforation. Okay, in a person who has survived for a few days, there may be stricture formation, and inhalation may actually lead to edema and pulmonary edema. So those findings can be seen during the autopsy. And skin application can lead to burns, that is chemical burns. So amount of tissue damage in chemical burns, okay, will actually depend upon the strength or quantity and extent of penetration and duration of the contact of the chemical. So for example, if somebody is exposed to the 10% hydrochloric acid, or higher concentration of sulfuric acid, what happens? the depth of the wounds will be more when compared to a person exposure to 2% hydrochloric acid, right? So that is okay. There are different factors that actually will influence the depth of the injury in case of contact wounds that are produced by these corrosive poisons. And as I told you, the difference between thermal burns and these chemical burns, right? So these are all there will be tickling marks will be present, and there will be staining of the clothes, and also the skin will be present in case of chemical burns. Okay, there is no line of demarcation will be present, no line of redness will be present. So all these are important signs of chemical burns to differentiate them from the normal burns that are produced by flame, right? Alkalis will produce more severe injuries when compared to the acids because of the liquefact necrosis they cause, and acids will actually produce coagulative necrosis. Okay, so this is a case of vitrillage where you can see there is trickling. So as you can see the trickling marks. Okay, so as you can see the trickling of the chemical from up to down, and there is brownish discoloration indicating maybe a sulfuric acid presence caused by sulfuric acid, right? And also actually there is no line of redness here, right? So line of redness you can see between the areas of areas between this normal skin and the removed skin, right? So that is not present because it is due to the chemical burns. And actually vesiccation is also very less common when compared to that of the flame burns in case of the chemical burns, right? So that trickling indicates the direction of the flow of the liquid, right? So in case of the flame burns, what happens? The flame, for example, somebody has exposed their clothes, so the flame burns will from down to up, right? But here in case of chemical burns, they start from up to down, right? So that is how you can actually differentiate apart from the normal features, right? So medical legal importance. So while alkali poisoning is common, mistaken for medicine or industrial, etc. And vitrillage, it can be used for vitrillage, and suicide is very rare due to the alkali poison, right? Okay, thank you. So next class we are going to talk about mineral poison, that is irritants. So what you have to do is you prepare for this week's assessment, and also start preparing for the second internal assessment. That will be in the next week, second week of August, right? So right, stay home, stay safe.
So what is the syllabus for assessment, sir? What is the
already?
అంటే ఈ వీక్ చెప్పిందేనా సార్?
ఏది ఈ వీక్ అసెస్మెంట్ గా? ఈ వీక్ అసెస్మెంట్ కి ఈ వీక్ చెప్పింది కాదు, లాస్ట్ వీక్ జనరల్ టాక్సికాలజీ ఉంది కదా, జనరల్ టాక్సికాలజీలో లాస్ట్ పార్ట్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా,